Responding to South Point. One shot in the foot, second victim shot in the chest.
3 people shot inside the streets of South Point today. A 10-year-old child among them hit by a ricocheting
people
bullet.
Running through the mall, trampling through the mall, like kids separated from their parents.
Shootings in this city have got to stop.
Having 6 young people shot at one time in one incident.
This is sickening. It's disgusting.
Next thing you know, all I heard was pow, 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 pow. It's normal Durham danger.
3 people shot. One victim was pronounced dead. At least 10 people were shot in just the last 3 days, averaging about 2 shootings every single day.
Heard the shooting and saw a body on the ground.
Same old over again.
You talk to residents and shooting after shooting.
A 21-year-old man shot to death on South Street.
In Durham, every time you turn on the news, somebody's child has been murdered.
One shot. 1 shot.
Gun violence has become normal in Durham, North Carolina, and people are fed up.
It's horrible, and I blame the government, I blame Durham finest, I blame it all because y'all letting the gangs and different ones take over the streets.
It's about Durham. It's about saving these kids, getting these people off the streets, stopping this gun violence, because it's possible.
Durham's a great place, but Durham's a violent place.
People are targets, shopping at the mall, riding on the school bus.
As a father, it's scary.
Dying on their way to get snow cones.
And that's where they were heading, to go get snow cones, and never made it. Never made it.
Why are so many people shooting each other, and what's being done to stop it? The WRAL Doc Unit was given exclusive access to the Durham Police Department.
I also have a daughter, so raising a child in Durham can be scary.
1 shot. 1 shot.
It's frustrating as hell.
We're about to do our next ride along. We're going to spend the evening with the gang unit.
You guys ready?
You're ready. All right.
What do you think any potential solution might be?
So you asked a loaded question. The police department cannot be the only entity addressing gun violence.
We spent time with people living this.
I've lost hope in public officials to solve this problem.
And pushed politicians and policymakers to tell us what they're doing to solve this. Do you think you personally have done enough?
No, I haven't done enough.
What do you say to people who don't think you should be meeting with gangs?
Tell them to give me another solution. If you want to be mayor, run for it, and then do it yourself.
Are you tough on violent crime?
Of course I'm tough on violent crime.
Why do so many people say that you're not?
You'd have to ask those people.
Do you think the DA is being tough enough?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Enough is enough. It is.
All right.
This is Durham Police Chief Patrice Andrews.
2321.
So we are starting patrol shift.
It's not normal to see a police chief in a department or city of this size on patrol, but these are not normal times in the Bull City. Gun violence and homicides are at an all-time high, while police say staffing is at its lowest. 50 people were killed in Durham last year, the highest number since 1995. There have been more than 1,100 shootings over the last year and a half. That's an average of 2 shootings every single day in Durham. The Durham Police Department has 111 open spots out of 537 officer positions. That's a 20% vacancy rate. Andrews, who became chief in November of 2021, is on patrol to help staffing and morale.
If officers don't feel like that they matter or they're a part of something or they're seen, they will leave.
40 minutes into our ride-along on a Monday afternoon.
1 shot. 1 shot.
There was a shooting at a gas station in Durham.
What did it say? It said, was one person shot? Yeah. Not sure how bad or where right now.
Single shooter went toward the wood line over here.
When we arrived on scene, Chief Andrews asked us to stay in the car for safety reasons.
Confirming scene secure.
The chief and the officer who we were with just jumped out, and then a fire truck came in, so it's kind of blocking our view. But we can see the chief interviewing people right now, trying to figure out what happened.
I have a witness telling me that one of the males dashed something at one of these houses.
Surveillance video shows a group arguing outside. A man pulls out a gun and shoots a teenager.
But I hear boom, 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 like 8 to 10 shots that he shot to that kid.
The shocked teenager runs inside for help.
He said, save me, call ambulance.
The store owner was interviewed by another WRAL crew that day.
The bullet went through my hand, it grazed here, it went through my jacket.
The victim was taken to the hospital. He survived.
They need to do more for the gun violence, gun control. These young kids should not have that big gun.
Wow. That was tough. There is just no regard for life. When the shots were fired, everyone scattered, but there were people there that had small children. Just thinking that in broad daylight, it's 1:17 and this happens.
I sense just like a real frustration.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating as hell.
We asked a lot of people why gun violence is so bad in Durham. Most city leaders said the people turning to guns have been left behind by society.
So it is about the personal choices that people make, but it is also about the structural poverty.
You shove them into public housing, and then you turn your backs on them. You created conditions that would lead to criminal behavior.
What do you say to that?
I would say look at Corporal Clark.
You guys ready?
We're ready.
All right.
First and last name?
I'm Corporal Jermaine Clark.
We spent a shift with Corporal Clark on DPD's gang unit.
So growing up here in Durham, growing up in inner city housing, this was always something I wanted to do. You know, growing up, I always interacted with the old gang unit, the old CAT team back in the day. So it was like, I always wanted to be a police officer.
Why do you think you were drawn to police?
I tell anybody, you know, your anchors, whatever your anchors are. My anchors were both my mother and my father, but also I had like 2 other relatives that were police officers as well. So even though, you know, I was growing up in that type of environment, I still had a different type of reinforcement from a family center, you know. Hey, Gray House, where you guys at?
DPD staffing shortages have impacted the gang unit too. The 15-member squad is down 6 people.
10-4-3-21-3-3.
There is a tremendous amount of gang activity that takes place in this city.
Why is that?
This is really a society that we live in now where even, you know, we're looking up to the gang members, you know, the local, you know, rap stars and stuff like that. Nobody's immune to it.
Clark said there are gang members in Durham who are legitimate rappers, embraced by the community they are helping to destroy. People like Antonio Davenport or Lil Tony. Police say Davenport was a member of the rap group 83 Babies, who signed a major contract with Atlantic Records. Federal court documents state Davenport is also part of the Durham-based 8 Trey Gangster Crips, and he sold drugs and committed fraud to make money for the gang. Months after signing that record deal, police say Davenport shot at an SUV in Durham. 9-year-old Zion Person was in that SUV on his way to get a snow cone. He died from his injuries.
And Zion's supposed to be going to the dentist the next morning. No, he's laying in a morgue. Are you kidding me?
Sandra Person is Zion's grandmother.
The one that's getting ready to go to trial for my grandson. He had already been in prison before of drugs and guns and things of that sort, okay? You come out, you have a second chance in life. You was rapping. You had just got $1 million record deal. Are you kidding me? But my grandson is gone because you want to run around and be stupid when you had a second chance in life to be someone.
It's challenging at times. They make multiple arrests. They get, you know, 15 to 20 gun seized in a month, which is pretty good. And you still turn around and there's still homicide after homicide, shooting after shooting. It's challenging.
And sometimes the guns get away.
So we'll try to catch up to this car.
We saw as a member of the gang unit tried to pull someone over.
Basically, he called out a Chapter 20 violation, which is a motor vehicle offense.
But the driver kept going.
So this car is not going to stop for us.
According to the Durham Police Department's chase policy, because we were in a neighborhood and the driver was not suspected of a violent crime,
Hey guys, if it's running, don't chase me.
officers cannot pursue him. It's too dangerous.
So that happens a lot, unfortunately. So what are reasons why cars don't stop? Probably there are guns in there, you know, guns or narcotics or firearm.
DPD just created a new team of 8 officers dedicated to getting guns off the street. But Chief Andrews doesn't know if she can make this a permanent effort.
I'm going to be very honest. I need to look at staffing.
police staffing issues are happening everywhere. Police chiefs blame the Great Resignation and anger towards police after the death of George Floyd. In Durham, giant yellow letters that spelled out defund were in front of DPD for 13 months. The letters are gone, but many say the damage is done, especially to morale and DPD's recruiting efforts.
Do you think your officers feel supported?
I think they have a wait and see.
Coming up,
if you're just taking what other people say, I don't think that is any indication of what we're doing.
I'm not. That's why I looked at numbers.
What are Durham officials doing to fight gun violence, and is anyone on the same page?
This was a child, 9 years old, an innocent child.
Zion Person should have turned 12 this year. Zion was shot and killed on his way to Pelicans Snowballs in Durham. His grandmother, Sandra Person, remembers rushing to the hospital that night.
I still see it to this day. To this day. My baby laying in the bed with a hole in his head, lifeless. And they even said he tried to hang on, but if he would have made it, he would have been a vegetable, you know? So I guess God seen fit for him to take him home so he won't be here, you know, living like that.
That was 3 years ago.
Should Zion's death, should that have been the wake-up call for this city?
Yes.
Was it?
No. It's still happening. So what's your game plan to stop it?
The game plan on stopping gun violence in Durham really depends on who you ask.
Durham is a mecca. It's now the startup capital of the South, but less than 2 miles from our city center, there are kids who jump in bathtubs at night when it's not bath time because of gunfire.
What is more important than our babies dying?
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Anthony Middleton has been on Durham City Council for 5 years.
Some of the things I've pushed for have been mass embrace. Some have been controversial, from guaranteed income to expanding violence interruption to shot spotter technology.
He said the city also needs a strong police force.
How important is morale when it comes to recruiting and retaining police?
Absolutely critical.
But Middleton was part of the council that allowed defund to stay up in front of DPD for over a year.
I mean, there are 111 openings. Are you worried the sentiment out there is Durham will allow defund to be on the street for over a year?
The reason why I'm not worried is because every day we're working on the situation. We passed one of the largest pay raises in the state, 15% for our police department. We are not defunding the police in Durham.
Elaine O'Neill was not mayor then, but it bothered the former judge and law school dean.
I cannot imagine going to work and having defund the judge or defund the dean and people not being hurt by that and scarred by that. So that's all I'll say about that. It's to be in this space tonight.
O'Neill has been mayor of Durham for 6 months.
We can do this.
She promised to make gun violence a top priority if elected.
I do believe that because of my unique position as a judge and seeing it from that side, I can bring some insight to what I believe is an invisible world to a lot of people. A lot of middle-class people don't associate with folk in gangs.
Mayor O'Neill has been meeting with gang members and trying to work with them to stop the violence and retaliatory shootings in Durham.
You have gotten criticism for meeting with gangs, developing a relationship with them. What do you say to people who don't think you should be doing that?
Tell them to give me another solution. That's why they call it an election. If you want to be mayor, run for it and then do it yourself. Otherwise, Elaine is going to do what my experience and expertise has taught me that I can do in my capacity as mayor.
They know what's going on in the streets.
Ashley Kennedy is the president of McDougal Terrace Resident Council, or the MAC, a housing project in Durham.
If you can work with them to try to stop the next thing from happening, I think that's a good thing to me.
Others worry.
Some don't like it. You know, some people say, hey, at least she's trying.
Our city and county leaders.
Mike Andrews was the sheriff in Durham from 2012 to 2018.
I don't want the mayor to send the wrong message either, because if she doesn't stop the violence, you know, then it's going to backfire.
Should the mayor of a city be involved in secret meetings?
Durham activist Paul Scott spoke out against the meetings in a YouTube video, claiming they were done in secret.
But no, I have no problem for talking to anybody in the community. But I think that there needs to be transparency.
In response to Scott's video, the mayor said she was trying to build trust before talking publicly about the effort.
The reformers, stand up. Let them see you. Turn around.
She then introduced a group of men she called the Reformers at her State of the City address in April. She has personally worked with them to intervene before a shooting or violence happens.
And they've been able to help us to quell some of the violence. Now,
how did you weigh the pros with the cons, which could be legitimizing a group or really giving a group responsible for violence even more power?
That's a good question. And then I think about the bodies of those who lie in the streets, you know, and they all look pretty much in Durham one way. So you're asking me, as a black mother of black sons, what choice do I make? Do I try to engage with them, or do I turn away from them because of what other people think?
On one hand, you have a message coming from part of Durham leadership saying, understand the gangs, work with the gangs. But at the same time, you have the law enforcement side saying, report on the gangs, snitch on the gangs. So which one is it? Which one do you want us to do?
If it does not stop, then I feel she'll lose a lot of credibility. And I think the world of Mayor O'Neill. I do. I want her to be successful.
What do they need to be doing?
It wouldn't be the most politically correct thing to do today. There needs to be a message sent, okay, we're going to start rounding up some of these violent offenders, and we're going to bring them and arrest them and bring them to jail. They need to take them to federal court in Greensboro, because the bonding system here is that as soon as an individual is arrested, they're released right back on the street as a revolving door.
We heard that complaint a lot over the past few weeks.
As fast as they're getting locked up, the people are back out on the street 5 minutes before the police finish the paperwork.
You go out here today and you arrest a guy, and sometimes that same guy will turn around in a couple weeks or a couple months and commit a violent crime. You know, and it's like, hey, well, we just arrested him.
Do you think the DA is being tough enough on these
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's got to be balance.
If prosecuting violent crime made us safe, we would be the safest country in the world. We cannot prosecute our way out of this.
District Attorney Satana DeBerry, in office since 2019, ran on a progressive platform. She vowed to do things differently than her predecessors.
The low-level things, the things that we think have led to mass incarceration in the United States, right? The thing that destabilizes communities, the over-prosecution of black and brown people, the things that really we think got us where we are now, we put more thought into diverting those things from court.
DeBerry has stopped seeking cash bail in most cases and wiped the records for hundreds of juveniles charged as adults. She said being focused on reform doesn't mean she's not interested in justice.
What I've said is that I believe we can have reform and public safety. And so, yes, I think that is what's happening in Durham now.
Are you tough on violent crime?
Of course I'm tough on violent crime.
Do you believe your record reflects that?
Absolutely.
Although her record is tough to gauge, we looked at all Superior Court felony convictions in Durham for the past 5 years. This is public data available through the Administrative Office of the Courts, or AOC. These are people convicted as charged. Plea deals are not included in these numbers because we wanted to focus on only those who pay the full price of the crime they're accused of committing.
The data shows the felony conviction rate in Durham in 2016 was 51%, close to the state average at the time of 48%. Under DeBerry, the conviction rate fell to 33%. That's 15% behind the state average. I asked DeBerry about the data we pulled.
So I looked at numbers ahead of this interview. Mm-hmm. You had a felony conviction rate last year of 33%. Why? Why is that number so low?
I don't know what those numbers mean. I haven't. Where'd you get those from?
From the AOC. From the
AOC.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you should go to Sarah for some numbers that actually reflect what we do every day, day to day, because the AOC numbers are notoriously bad about predicting what we do.
So what are your numbers? What is your felony conviction rate?
I don't know. Right now, we'd have to get those from our data folks. But we don't prioritize conviction rates. What we prioritize is working on the most serious and violent crime.
However, the court data doesn't show that either. Since taking office, Durham's conviction rate for first-degree murder charges is 24%. Compare that to 67% in Wake County and 45% statewide.
Crime class, prior record level.
Sarah Willits, DeBerry's press person, told us after the interview, looking only at felony conviction rates and not plea deals or deferrals represents a small number of cases. Bottom line, DeBerry said conviction rates are not their top concern.
We don't lean on really what we think are outdated modes of determining how well prosecution works.
But do you have a method, is what I'm asking. If this is outdated, then what do you use? You have to have a system.
We do have numbers that we collect, but we also are looking at individual cases and the outcomes of those individual cases and whether or not those individual cases provide accountability in that particular case.
Okay. I guess what I'm getting at is we've interviewed a lot of people for this documentary, and it comes as no surprise to you. You hear it all the time. I've read interviews you've done. People say you are not tough on violent crime. They say it all the time. So other than saying, yes, I am, how are you proving that to the community?
Well, I think we're proving it to the community by our outcomes in these individual cases. I don't think that there's any indication that we haven't done a good job.
DeBerry, who won the May primary with 80% of the vote and is running unopposed in November, said what's happening in Durham is not unique.
Violent crime is up nationwide. And so this idea that Durham is exceptionally violent is simply not true.
We're talking about Durham, where my grandson was shot and killed 3 years ago almost. They need to figure out a way of getting the community back.
Coming up, where do we go from here?
Durham is going through some tough times right now, but these things are not what defines Durham.
Chief Andrews said there are people working every day to change things in Durham.
Love Ashley Kennedy right there. She is wonderful, and she lives over here in McDougal community.
Kennedy lives at the MAG and lives with gun violence. One of her 4 kids has PTSD from hearing gunshots.
I know what I'm doing to contribute to Durham. Okay, so in your journal.
She runs a food pantry and an after-school program for young people.
Like, I see a lot of potential in these guys and girls out here in McDougal. There's potential in Durham. We just got to pull it out of them.
We provide young people with opportunities to do something different with their lives. They will not pick up a gun. And we see that with the reformers and others out there who want to do life a different way without using a gun as an employment tool.
There are soup kitchens, there are pantries, there are tutoring programs going on in church basements. Many of them are underfunded, understaffed, but they keep working. Those are the type of things we need to be looking to lift up and fund.
It's not just one aspect. Oh no. You have the community aspect, the police aspect, even all the way up to the district attorney's office. We all have to get back on the same page.
We all as a community are responsible for the structural and systemic issues that lead to violent crime. And until we acknowledge that and stop trying to point fingers at each other about whose responsibility it is, we won't get good outcomes.
It's so hard.
Meanwhile, families are left broken, wondering when this gun violence will end, and if the officials working on it are truly working together.
I mean, y'all have to find the time to sit down and come up with a plan. And I'm not trying to hear, we don't have the funds. Find them. I mean, you have to find a way.
Zion person. The efficacy of this government, the greatness of our city will be measured by whether or not Zion can go get an icy.